of the Grand Canyon. Built up from the mud flow, not eroded down into the ground. Fully stratified, containing petrified trees. All the moisture was blown out of them by the force of the explosion. And fossils, where the soft tissue was melted away by the heat of the mud, and the imprints were left. How long did it take to form a canyon? 1/40th the size of the Grand Canyon? Less than 3 days. How long do you think it took to form the Grand Canyon? Do we need millions of years? Especially since the Colorado River enters the canyon 2,000 feet below its high point? You think the Colorado River is going to flow uphill to erode the first 2,000 feet? Several laboratories have done experiments on stratification. Studies here in America and in Europe. And in those experiments, in attempts to form strata, 2 things are discovered. They are proven inviolable. They do not change. There is no exception. One of them is strata always forms in moving water. And the other is it never forms in stagnant water. That means in order to get strata, you've got to have moving water. Now, if any of you are interested, I have a DVD that shows the experiments. Now, I know this sounds like a commercial, but you can have one for $3. It covers my cost. No profit. And you can observe the experiments that were conducted. But could the evolutionists produce experiments that will show otherwise? No lab in the world has been able to do it. And by the way, the findings that are on this DVD were presented to no less than 4 international conventions on stratification before scientists. This is no backyard geologist who had this made. And not only that, he began believing in an old Earth. A couple of years later, after he finished his experiments, he no longer did. He believed in special creation. The observed phenomena is evidence. If strata only forms in moving water, the evolutionist has a problem. And that is, if you're going to tell me that strata forms in a fossil in a certain layer in Australia, in the same layer in Arizona is the same age, you've got to do 2 things. First, you have to prove it's the same layer. And then you have to have the whole world underwater at the same time. But if you want to tell me that all the floods around the world that created strata and buried these things that became fossils, now you have a problem. Because if they're all created at different times, they were all created at different ages, and you can't compare them for dating. You have no way to date them without a flood. As far as the Cambrian is concerned, you have to consider something. Without predecessors, fully developed and complex life forms are buried. No evidence of anything before them. Is the Cambrian explosion, mind you, explosion all around the world, from a little pond in such a short period of time with something as small as a bacteria? The Cambrian explosion. Is it evidence of the beginning of life, or is it evidence that life was here and it was all buried at the same time in the flood of Noah? That's a matter of interpretation, for the most part. Even Darwin, as pointed out by Drew, knew that the absence of those fossils was detrimental. Darwin said there is another allied difficulty which is more serious. I allude to the manner in which species belonging to several of the main divisions of the animal kingdom suddenly appear in the lowest known fossiliferous rocks. Darwin said the abrupt manner in which whole groups of species suddenly appear in certain formations has been urged by several paleontologists, such as Agassiz, Pickett, and Sedgwick, as a fatal objection to the belief in the transmutation of species. Stephen Jay Gould discovered, October 1989, the most famous such burst, the Cambrian explosion, marks the inception of modern multicellular life within just a few million years. Nearly every major kind of animal anatomy appears in the fossil record for the first time. The pre-Cambrian record is now sufficiently good that the old rationale about undiscovered sequences of smoothly transitional forms will no longer wash. And you know Gould is a militant evolutionist. One more. Evolutionary biology's deepest paradox concerns this strange discontinuity. Why haven't new animal body plans continued to crawl out of the evolutionary cauldron? Why are the ancient body plans so stable? Scientific American, 1992. There are many, many, many problems to the idea of strata beyond the fact that you have no progenitors of profound life forms. You have complexity and you have life appearing all over the world at the same time, and strata only forms in moving water is just the beginning of it. We haven't scratched the tip of the pinnacle of the iceberg yet. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to resist the temptation for a few minutes to respond directly to most of what John just said. We'll get to that in the next 10-minute stretch. What I'd rather do in this segment is speak specifically about the age of the Earth, but speak about it in a broad and general sense. That'll make sense in a minute. But rather than try and get very detailed into one or two specific points about the geological strata, or about any one or two of the number of ways that we go about aging or dating things, what I want to do is step back for a moment and ask the question, how is it that we paint the bigger picture of an old universe? How is it that science has arrived at this conclusion? You know, we both agree, our friends over here and we agree, that if the age of the Earth is young, if it is indeed measured in thousands of years, then we're wrong. Maybe they're right, probably they're right, but we're certainly wrong. In fact, if the age of the Earth is only a couple 100 million years old, we are wrong. So we don't just need them to be wrong on the age of the Earth by a little bit. When they say the age of the Earth is measured in thousands of years, we need it to be not just a little different than that, we need it to be way different than that. Huge difference here. And as Joe mentioned before, this was a big objection when Darwin first proposed evolution by natural selection, because modern scientists thought the Earth was only a couple 100 million years old. Clearly that's not enough time for that process to work. And they were right, it's not enough time.